Good morning, traders. Happy Friday. Hopefully you guys are all doing really, really well. My name is Jason Krutzky. It is a pleasure, as always, to be here and hanging out. Hopefully you guys are doing good, like I said. It's been an interesting week out there. You know, there have been quite a few big moves in individual names, but man, the indexes have just been pretty quiet, at least spying the QQQ, huh? Trying to absorb and digest the unbelievable gains that this thing has seen over the past 3 weeks. What's up, brother? How's it going? Daily Stock Picks, how are you, man? What have you guys got your eyes on today? What are you thinking? We have Opex today, everybody knows. 2.4, the big number, 2.4 trillion in notional value coming to a close today. I don't know. I don't have the dollar value for that. I'm curious to know what it is. If anybody knows, hit me in the chat and let me know. But with Opex, you have to assume a bit of vol. How does it auto-fib just to where the chart begins? Well, all right. So that's an interesting question. It's going to be based off of the most recently completed move per the time frame that you are locked to. Now, there are a couple things to keep in mind. First of all, this refresh button here. This refresh button is going to control all of your auto analysis tools. It might be, actually, man. Safari is not the best OS to be utilizing TrendSpider on. However, let's talk about how auto analysis tools work, because it is definitely something worth understanding. And I'm just gonna I'm removing all the indicators from my chart so that we're just focused on this. Now, all auto analysis tools are built off of what we call the truth in analysis timestamp. That's this vertical dash line right here that's locked currently to November 13th. Now, the reason why they're built off of this, or maybe not the reason why they're built off this, but this line controls where you're going to be seeing all of your auto analysis drawn from. It's the last, essentially the last time that the chart was quote unquote updated, or these tools were quote unquote updated. And we leave it that way. We make it so that you have to update it, so that, you know, we don't know what you're doing your analysis on, so we don't want to mess with your analysis. So it just locks, and you need to refresh it. Now, auto fibs are built. Notice how when I just refreshed it, it jumped to this swing. Now, auto fibs are built essentially. Let me grab a zigzag indicator so you guys can see. See, auto fibs are built based off of zigzag. So they're going to draw on the most recently completed move. Zigzag is highlighting the most recently completed move per the time frame. So the first thing I would do is I would update your chart. If you're not seeing those auto fibs where you're expecting to see them, draw them, update your chart using this refresh icon. However, that does not always mean that it's going to jump to the current swing. If this swing isn't complete, then there's a chance that it might not jump there. So then you might want to zoom out a little bit, perhaps. Notice how now it's highlighting this swing, even though we haven't traded through this swing yet. So we need either a reversal and a move lower for this thing to jump, or we need a push higher past the high of this previous swing. So that's how you should be looking at it, Mr. Daily Stock Picks. Sir. Does that make sense? There are a few of you here, so thank you for tuning in. I would love it if y'all said hello and introduce yourself. Where are you tuning in from? Do you have any specific TrendSpider related questions? I am here today with zero agenda. I don't have anything in particular that I want to look at. I'm happy to look at whatever you guys want. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys happen to have. That's really why I'm here, is to just be a live answer to your questions. So if you have them, hit me with them. For those of you who are tuned in, are we all TrendSpider traders? Are some of us TrendSpider traders? What are you doing here? Are you here because you want to learn more about TrendSpider? Are you here because you already know a ton about it and you just follow us and you're cool and you want to come kick it? Say hello. Because otherwise, then I'm just kind of jumping around on charts. Tesla, big move today. I heard that maybe Elon was tweeting. I didn't look into that, but that's what I had heard. Filled yesterday's gap down. Oh no, filled today's gap down. Sorry, filled today's gap down. Made a new high, kind of nice. Nvidia getting back into nearly all-time highs, pretty wild. Nvidia has earnings. When do they have earnings? Let's see. On the 21st. It's going to be a big day for markets. Pretty impressive move here. Really expanding the range, huh? They took out the lows, took out the highs. Impressive. So what's up, guys and gals and folks who are tuned in? Say hello. What have you got to lose? Unless you're just all bots who are tuned in. That's possible. So daily stock picks, here's another decent example of why you would want to be updating. Right, this is drawing a fib over this swing, and you could argue there are two more that have occurred, but it's just based off of where our truth line is back in October. So we do a little update, and then we get the fib sequence over this current swing. And again, this is going to be true. Let's see if I can find something that I haven't updated in a while. Go to a bigger time frame here. Yeah, here's a really good example. Turn all this off. So my truth line is set back to January of 2022. Tells you how long ago I looked at DOW. My fibs painting over this swing. That makes no sense. My trend lines, same idea. My trend lines are built off of essentially the knowledge that this is the last known candle. So everything in the future is not being taken into account. Heat maps, same idea. Heat maps are built off of the truth line. It's all built off of the truth line. So do make sure that you're always updated there. Yep, that's the way, man. Got to update. I'm gonna check Discords real quick. Let some folks know that I'm around. You got any other questions, Daily? Looks like it's just me and you and a bunch of bots. Yeah, what do you want to scan for, brother? Let's build. You got anything particular you're hunting? Paul, what's up? Does the platform have an indicator that provides order flow and footprint? Unfortunately, we do not. However, have you played around with raindrop candles? If you have not, we can talk about them really quick. Because raindrop candles are kind of like, they're kind of like your footprint charts. They're essentially showing you the same thing. It's just not as broken down. So a raindrop candle. Oh, okay, cool, Paul. So let's talk about raindrop candles. Raindrop candles have two sides. You know, your standard Japanese candle, you have an open, high, low, close. A raindrop candle has a left and a right-hand side per whatever time frame you're looking at them on. We offer them down to the 10-minute time frame. So I'm just going to use a 4-hour here. Pretty basic. The idea behind a raindrop candle is the left-hand side is going to be the first half of the time frame and the volume distribution of the first half of the time frame. So the high of the candle is the high of that candle. The low of the candle is the low of that candle or that time frame. The left-hand side is the distribution across the high and the low, the volume distribution. The right-hand side is the volume distribution across the second half of the candle. So the first half of the time frame, first 2 hours of that 4-hour candle. On the right, second 2 hours of that 4-hour candle. Each side of the raindrop has a horizontal bar. This is the volume weighted average price for each half of the time frame. So on the left-hand side, I'm just looking at this blue raindrop here. On the left-hand side, it was at 45.13 or so, 45.12 3/4. On the right-hand side, 45.12 1/2. So, you know, those are basically the same values, just a 1/4 of a point in between them. And so whenever the volume weighted average price pretty much remains the same over the course of a time frame, you're going to get what we call a blue doji. So this is a true volume weighted doji candle. Now, if I go to my standard candle, clearly it looks quite different. Does not look like a doji. Does not look really like an indecision candle, right? It just looks kind of like a bearish candle that, like a bullish or a bearish engulfing candle took out the highs and the lows of the previous. But again, we go back to the raindrop and we see that it's a blue doji. So blue dojis often represent periods of strong indecision, we'll say. Especially as you get into bigger time frames, as you get into the daily and the weekly, these blue dojis become rarer and rarer because when price isn't moving in one direction or another, nobody's making any money, right? So market makers tend to push and pull price. Price tends to fluctuate, and therefore we tend to see less blue doji candles and more green and red ones. Now, green candles are going to occur when your volume weighted average price is higher on the second half of the time frame than on the first half of the time frame. If that volume weighted average price increases from one half to the second half, from the first to the second half, you're going to get a green candle. If it decreases, you're going to get a red candle. Now, there are areas on these candles that are flat. I'm going to go look at SPY real quick, just to kind of see things a little bit more clearly here. Yeah, cool. I'm going to zoom in. There are areas on the candle that are flat. You know, sometimes it's a large area that's flat. Sometimes it's just a very small area that's flat. So anywhere that's flat on the candle, whether it be on the left or the right-hand side, that's areas where no volume has occurred. So this candle, for example, talk about this one. Darn, hold on. Oh, I see. It's just very light. There. So we're talking about this red candle right here. The first half of this time frame, all of the volume occurred at the very, very top of the range from 449.92 down to 449.34. All of the volume in the first 2 hours of this candle occurred at the very top of that range. No volume occurred down at the bottom of the range. On the second half, only a little bit of volume occurred where all of the volume occurred on the beginning of the candle, or the first 2 hours, And it looks like we just kind of traded way down for the rest of the day. Most of the volume on the second half of this candle occurred on the right-hand side, back half of it. So sometimes you'll see candles that have a very kind of even distribution across the whole height of the candle. We could see pretty clearly here on this one, there was way more volume in the first half than on the second half of this candle. This one's pretty even, right? But that's the idea here. You can clearly see the volume distribution, which is kind of like your footprint. You could see where there are spikes in volume, kind of what prices had more volume, what prices had less volume, and then at what price the most volume occurred. Does that make sense? I don't know why they're blocking you, Daily. Paul, if you need more explanation than that, just let me know. Trader Isaac, what's up, Isaac? Hope you're well. You have 2 subs. Your new one does not have Trends tab at the top. I was told I have to use eyeball on side of chart now. Why? Your chart has tab at top. Why did new subs not have tab at top? That's actually a fantastic question that I don't know the answer to, man. I don't know why a new sub would have things any different. What? I'll have to ask. Let me ask real quick, because I really don't know the answer. Give me 1 second. I'm just pinging our dev team. And I will report back. It does not show the delta between the ask and the bid, unfortunately. No, there's nothing on the platform that's going to show us that. Unfortunately. Perhaps that's something we'll add one day, Paul. What's up, Cracked? Good to see you. Yeah, Cracked. That's a great question. Let's do that. Let's spend a little time in the strategy tester. We'll talk through some things. I'll share I'll share a strategy with y'all. I've been kind of demoing this idea. Paul, unfortunately, liquidity map. Can you link me to let me see here. Are you thinking like, I kind of think well, actually, I don't know exactly what you're referring to with a liquidity map. The first thing that comes to mind for me on a liquidity map would be something like volume by price. So let's see. And let me turn off some of this stuff. Is this kind of where your head's at? Like a volume distribution across a period of the chart or across a section of the chart? If so, this is called volume by price. You can move your start line. This is my start line. Notice how the volume profile is changing as I move it. You've got your volume weighted average price, your point of control, horizontal levels there. You can also, though, anchor your volume by price automatically to a highest volume candle, a highest high, a lowest low, a blue raindrop like we just discussed, a recent gap, and then day, week, month, quarter, year to date. So anything that's auto anchored is going to automatically jump every time the new condition is hit. So if you anchored it week to date, for example, here's your start of the week. It'll anchor all week. It'll stay right here. And then come next week, it'll anchor again on Monday. But I don't know if this is specifically what you're talking about. So if it is not, then link me to what exactly you are talking about. And my sincerest apologies for not being sure about what exactly that is. Sounds like you are a price action trader. Is that true? So cracked. Let's do this. Because I build strategies relatively often for the gang over at TrendSpider. It is different. Okay, that's what I figured, Paul. I figured that I wasn't showing you what you were after. But yeah, hit me with what you got. So one strategy that I recently came across, let me add this indicator. I'm a price action trader. I don't use a ton of indicators personally. So when I build strategies with indicators, it really is kind of like, for me, it's kind of a system of just kind of guessing. I never really know what's going to work. And what I do is I use the tools in the strategy tester to help me understand how a strategy works and help me build and think through a strategy. So one that I built recently, Apple, it was for Apple earnings, wanted to have something for Apple that I could share. And I thought to myself, well, I want to build something that's like really, really simple. And you know, what's the first thing that every new trader learns about? It's a moving average. So I figured, well, I will build something with a moving average. And so my thought was, I'm going to use a moving average that price seems to respect really well. And I just kind of started picking random lengths. I pulled up a simple moving average and I was just like, I don't know, 80, you know, just kind of looking for random alpha out there. So on 80, you know, price, it respects the 80 pretty well. It has tendencies to kind of just barely break over it and fail, barely break over it and fail, barely break under it and gain, barely break under it and gain. Anyway, I just kind of went through a bunch of different lengths and I kind of landed on the 115 because I thought that, from what I could tell when I kind of zoomed out, and again, remember, I don't really use too many moving averages, so I'm just kind of guessing here, but when I looked back on the chart, I saw it did spend a pretty decent amount of time below and above the 115. And that was kind of interesting to me because if I'm going to make something really simple, like go long when price is above this moving average, get out of the long trade when price is below it, that's what I want. I want price to spend long periods of time above and below without like breaking through. So that was my first thought. Let's go long when price closes above the 115. Let's get out of that long when price closes below it. Really simple. So we say price greater than SMA 115 and say apply. We'll let that do its thing. And then over here, we'll say price less than 115 and say apply. So notice it built that condition out for me. And I was looking at this on the 15-minute time frame. So we switch time frames here. And then I want to look back as far as possible. So we do 7,000 candles. And we get this. Let me see here. Oops. I thought that didn't look right. All right. Oh, interesting. All right, so we get this. And, you know, this is okay. You've got, this is my performance chart. The blue line is going to be my strategy. This is my equity curve, if you will. And the colorful Christmas colored line is the asset. Anywhere that's green on this line is going to be when I'm in a trade and I come out of that trade with a profit. Anywhere that's red on this line is where I am in a trade and I end up losing on the trade. I come out with a loss. So my equity curve is slightly beating the asset over the same period of time, 32.4% profit versus a 29% profit on the asset. So, you know, that's kind of cool. We're beating buy and hold. On the right-hand side where it says tabular data, and your tabular data may look different from mine, you can adjust the values that are in it by clicking on the 3 dots right here. And you can add a bunch of different data points. The big ones that I kind of pay attention to, I'm curious to know like average trade length. I'm curious to know average return. I'm curious to know risk to reward, my win-loss rate, and so on. But, you know, different traders have different requirements, different values that they're looking at. So the next step of this is, all right, well, I'm beating buy and hold, but not really by that much. You know, am I really excited about this idea? I don't know. But I see things like this. Remember, we were just looking at that 50 or that 80 period SMA where price would like just barely get above it and then fail. And I really want to avoid scenarios like this because why did I get into this trade? You know, it's kind of annoying that I got into this trade. It's kind of annoying that I got into this trade and this trade. So how do I avoid it? Well, the simplest thing that I could think of to avoid it was define that price has to be close above this moving average more than once. You know, for me, I always feel like the simplest way is the way. That's always where I'm going to go. And also, I think it's important to note that you should only change one thing at a time because you want to know how each thing that you do is changing the results of the strategy. So I'm going to go add parameter, and I'm just going to script this one myself. So we'll say close greater than indicator, simple moving average. I could have, if I wanted to, I could have clicked this little duplicate icon, and that would duplicate it for me. And then I'm just going to make this one candle ago, not 10, 1. And then rerun. So now we're defining that price is closed above the 115 twice, 2 candles in a row. All right, so now we're doing a little bit better. We've increased the returns by 5%. We're now beating buy and hold by 8, 9%. Not bad, almost 30% total, but 9% in real terms. I still am looking good over here in tabular data. I have no-go highlighting. We'll talk about no-go highlighting here in just a little bit. We can look again at that curve if we want to. Again, our curve in blue, the equity or the asset in red and green and white. Now, the next step of this for me personally is to look at the pattern track of my winners. So I have 96% of winners turned on inside of the Price Behavior Explorer. And this gives me an idea of where I need to be considering stop loss orders and take profit orders. 96% of my winners follow this basic track. They draw down. They draw down as much as about 0.3% before reversing and becoming winners. And they slowly gain. They hit a max profit, 96% of them. Out of the 96% of my winners, the max that I can expect profit-wise is about 8%. But if I turn on a number of winning positions here, this graph tells me how many of my positions actually make it to that 8.5% point. So let's look back and see how many positions I took. 84 positions historically. But of those 84 positions, only 4 actually make it to that 8%. So though that 8% is a juicy target, only 4 out of my 80 actually get there. So then I look further back in the chart. I can see that 20 positions make it closer to 5%. 16 positions make it to about 6%. Right? Not all of my positions. I want to know kind of where Maliek, we will do that next. I promise. Not all my positions make it to that big value. So maybe what I want to do is I want to set a stop loss below that 0.3% value. And maybe I want to set a profit target of, or a take profit target of something that's a little bit more reasonable. I know that, 20% of my positions make it to 5%. A few more make it to 6%. Maybe I want that 6% to be kind of where I would take a profit. So that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a stop loss at 0.3. And I'm going to put a take profit at 6. And rerun. And so things get a little bit better. 55% return. The equity curve is looking quite a bit nicer now. Cleaner, not as steep. There aren't as many kind of steep drawdowns. And this is kind of getting closer to what we want to see. We've taken a lot more positions now, 170 positions. Win rate has decreased a little, but that doesn't matter because our risk to reward and our average return are enough, or rather our average win are enough to keep us safe, right? Even though we have a 24% win rate, our average return and our risk reward kind of counterbalance that win rate. So then from here, if you're happy with this return, great. And perhaps you're happy with this. This is 2x the asset. It's pretty cool. The next thing that I would do, or the next thing that I like to do, is I like to start playing around with time frames to kind of see, well, what happens if I utilized a different time frame. And on the hourly, you get this performance, 776 on your asset, or on your strategy versus 189 on the asset. Pretty clean little equity curve. And also, you're trading more, we're taking way more positions, but it's over a much longer period of time, 4 years versus 1 year. Your win rate has gone up a little bit. Your average win stayed about unchanged. Your risk reward ratio went down. So you may utilize different time frames to kind of tool with your returns and see if there's a particular time frame that the strategy happens to perform better on. But notice all through this time, no matter what we're doing here, the tabular data is not flashing any no-go highlighting. So we're continuously staying kind of safe in this strategy. You could play around with your stop loss, with your take profit values. Things might have changed because we're taking a different time frame in your trades. But that's kind of generally how I look at it. I try and keep all of these tools really simple, look at one of these at a time. If you're curious to know what the asset was doing or what the strategy might have done ahead of actually getting into it, you can. Paul, cheers, man. Thanks for jumping in. Send me, Paul, real quick before you roll. Here's my Twitter handle. Send me a link to the liquidity map. And worst case scenario, I can send it over to our dev team and see if that's something that we could bring at some point. But yeah, those are the main tools that I'm going to use when I'm building out the strategies. I'm looking at the 96% of winners. I'm looking at the number of winning positions, and I'm trying to gauge, what can I expect out of most of my winners? Is there a period on the chart where returns tend to fall off? Should I set a time-based spot? Like, you could argue that since only 3 trades made it past this 122 candle level or point in time, you could maybe add a number of candles past and say, well, I want to get out of any trades and over 133 candles or 120 candles or whatever that value was. Does that kind of help you out a little bit, Cracked? David, expected range for SPY based on gamma. I don't have that value, unfortunately, for you. Maliek, let's take a look at Visa real quick. Interesting. Took highs. Zoom out. How close are they to those all-time highs? They are darn close, aren't they? 250, 267, previous all-time high. So you're asking me if I think that to add the strategy commissions. Oh, unfortunately, no, there is not. So let's see here. I mean, they kind of already hit 250 today, didn't they? 250, 22, your high of day. So is your question if they're going back to 250? Certainly looking like you have a bit of exhaustion risk. They took highs. You probably had a ton of stops above this previous high, 250.06, which they just took. If we go to a smaller time frame, let me do this. See, what's tricky about when new highs are made. When new highs are made, yes, it is bullish, but in the sense that it also presents an exhaustion risk. New highs are made, liquidity is swept from those previous highs, and then a pullback is sought. So now your question is, now the question is will they hold a higher low? So what I would do is I would, just for intraday today, I would be watching this swing. I wonder if the auto fibs, yeah. So auto fibs identified the same spot. Hold on one sec. Let me turn off this. So I would be watching this swing, and I would be gauging what they do on this pullback. In strong uptrends, oftentimes a pullback to the 382 or the 50% will get bought and they'll push higher. If this thing starts breaking below kind of this middle area here, I would be a little suspect about them trying to come back in and test down here. Just today. This is just talking about what might happen today. Now, I don't trade Visa. I don't know anything about how it trades. And I think that that's important. Let's look at seasonality real quick and see how seasonality is looking. All right, so November, second strongest performing month of the year historically over the past 16 years, 75% win rate in November. Let's see how Fridays do. Today's Friday. Friday, your best performing day historically since 2012. 56% win rate on Friday. That's kind of cool to see. Let's look at hour of the day. So far, it's kind of acting how you'd expect it to. The last half hour, worst performing hour of the day. So based off of data since 2022, so you're talking about a year and a half of data here. Looks like the Visa tends to perform better and better into the end of the day, and then the last hour of the day is kind of meh. So that's good to know. We could check and see if there's anything else going on there. On the insiders, a little bit of selling earlier this month. Probably wouldn't impact how things are going today. We can look at, let's do this too. So here's unusual options on Visa as of today. And what I'm specifically looking for, Awesome, Elliot. Great. That's really great to hear. Yeah, there's lots of different ways that you can think about, think about the way things are going to go. You got to figure it's Opex. So there's going to be some chicanery out there. You got lots of options expiring. That's why I wanted to see what's up with unusual options to see if there's any big bets happening. One thing that I really like to look for is sweeps at the ask. And why do I want to look for sweeps at the ask? Can anybody guess? Got 5 seconds. Otherwise, I'm just going to tell you because I hate sitting here in silence. Okay, so why sweeps at the ask? Well, because those are the most kind of bullish and the most bearish bets being taken. If you're sweeping, then you're looking across exchanges, you're grabbing whatever's available. And if you're paying at the ask, then you're kind of more confident in it, right? You're not putting in an offer and that offer is getting accepted. You're taking what is being offered, whatever the price is. You're just saying, give it to me. And so that's why I like to look for sweeps at the ask. The next thing I'm going to look for is kind of premium size. Here's your premium right here. So nothing huge in premium that I see right off the bat. We can kind of scroll through here. All right, now we're getting into tomorrow. So all of the unusual options orders for today are just, there haven't been that many of them. You have this one 0 days to expiry, this one 0 days, this one 0 days. So these are interesting because they're larger orders, 0 days to expiry. Looks like 2 of those orders are put orders for about $50,000 total. The call order is about 74,000. This one's maybe the oddest one because it's 65% of the open interest. So this is kind of a weird strike, perhaps. The other 2 are just a very small amount, 1x of open interest. Oh, actually, no, these are quite big too. So these might be all of the open interest. So these are actually bigger. And what is this? This is the 250 strike. It's a 175 call. So these are like deep in the money. But this is considered a neutral trade. So actually, perhaps the puts are the odd ones. But this guy, so this might have been put selling here because this is considered bullish. But we don't absolutely know. So anyway, not a ton to glean from the unusual options side. We can see if there's any news here. I don't know if you guys have played around with the assistant yet, but this is a really cool tool. Just lets you navigate the platform without having to really know where anything is. Type in the thing that you're looking for if you want to add Bollinger Bands to your chart. Any indicator, type in the indicator and select it and they'll add to your chart. And you could do all kinds of complex things like what I've been doing where I'm adding specifically filtered news for Visa just directly to the chart. You can ask it to test a trading strategy for you. Type in test MACD cross. And it'll pull up the conditions for a MACD cross. It'll start running that scan or start running that test on the name on your chart. Pretty impressive. little tool, pretty functional little tool. But not looking bad here, holding the 50% retrace of the move so far. So I don't know, if you're long Visa, I wish you luck, sir. How many of you guys are TrendSpider traders? Correct? I know you are. Malik, are you? Anything else in particular that you're interested in learning about, Malik? We'd love to get you on the platform, man. Hello to the new folks who have just arrived. I'm Jason. Nice to see you. Please introduce yourself. Say hello. If you have questions about TrendSpider, please hit me with them. I'm here to answer your questions. I'm not going to be here a heck of a lot longer. So if you got them, ask them. Oh, Mike. Nice, man. Welcome. Glad to have you. Is there anything that you're curious about? Trying to learn how to do on the platform? Anything I can show you? I understand that it is a very dense platform. There's lots to do here. Lots to learn how to do. So it can take a little bit of getting used to. This assistant's going to be your friend starting out. It may become your absolute go-to spot. I'm not sure how long you've been here, but if you weren't here when I was talking about it, this is your way of navigating the platform using AI. So you can type things into the assistant and it'll direct you to the things that you type in there. So if you want to add like a VWAP to your chart, type in VWAP. Have struggled with removing drawings? Sure. So with drawings, I'm just going to turn some stuff off here. Let's make this easier to see. With drawings, a couple ways that you can get rid of things. You can right click on them and you can go to remove. Remove this horizontal line. If you have multiples, let's say like that, I can right click on one and I can remove all of them. I can remove all annotations. So if I maybe drew, I don't know, if I drew a number of different things on my chart, whatever, just kind of drawing random things. I can remove all of them. It'll remove all of them. You can also, though, kind of what I find to be the most efficient way, because I rarely want to remove everything that I've drawn. I just want to remove one thing at a time. Hold shift and click on it. That's going to be the fastest, in my opinion, way of removing drawings. Now, Mike, scanners. What do you want to know about scanners? On the left-hand side here, This is going to contain a list of pre-builts. Now, my list is going to be quite bigger than yours. I've been here for 3 years. I've made a lot of scanners, and I've saved a lot of them. So my list is bigger than yours, but you will see anything labeled sample. So there is still a lot of stuff in here that you can utilize. You can search things. You could say falling wedge. And the pre-builts are all going to be in here. Falling wedge breakout. Just click on it. It loads those conditions in. The only thing that I would also recommend doing is turning the current candle on. The current candle toggle defines what candle you're referring to. And that's important because think about time frames. You can use up to 4 time frames in our scanner. And let's say you have a daily and a weekly condition. Well, if the current candle is not toggled on, then it's going to be looking at the most recently closed candle per the time frame that you're scanning for. So the most recently closed daily candle, if you were scanning for something happening today, the most recently closed daily candle is yesterday. If you had a weekly condition here, the most recently closed weekly candle is last week's weekly candle. Right? So even if it's Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon, it's still going to be giving you results that were meeting your conditions last week if you have this current candle toggled off. However, those are the conditions that are absolutely true. The candle closed and the conditions are true. If your current candle is toggled on, then it's looking for these conditions to be true in the current candle that's forming. And just by design, those conditions can change as the candle forms. Before it closes, conditions that are true right now may not be true later on once that candle, as that candle continues to form, if it's not closed yet. So important to understand the difference there. That's an important little piece. Extended hours is pretty obvious. You're just including extended hours into your scans. I tend to leave this off. I don't pay a ton of attention to extended hours data. But, you know, if you do, then you can include it. Again, though, type in the thing you're looking for. Lower Bollinger Band pierce, upper Bollinger Band pierce. Type in any indicator, and there are going to be some pre-builts. You can also, so just so you're aware, we call these scripts. Conditions that define what you're looking for. We are going to call that a script, a visual script to be exact. And in your visual scripts button here, you're going to see a ton of pre-built things. How did we train AI to find this stuff? Well, we did it through building it out. And then AI grabs. So, again, if I wanted to define something, let's just look at some VWAP stuff. Maybe a VWAP bounce. It builds those conditions for me here in the script manager. And then where it says send to, I can send this out to tools across the platform. I can create an alert off of these conditions. I can utilize these conditions as entry or exit criteria in my strategy tester. I can send them to the scanner. I can send them to a smart checklist. We could talk about what a smart checklist is if you'd like to. But for the sake of this little demo here, we're talking about the scanner. So I'm going to send the VWAP bounce script to my scanner. It imports that script directly into the scanner. Again, I'm just going to turn the current candle toggle on. I choose my scan through list. I always like to scan through large lists. The NYSE composite, the NMS composite is another really big one. 3,400 names here. Run the scan and you're off to the races. You're going to get all the names that currently have VWAP bounces on the daily. If we want to change time frames here, we can go to where it says set all time frames and adjust them accordingly. We can change time frames just by clicking on a different time frame here. It's up to you. Hey Juan, good to see you. Atlanta Fed GDP now increases. Today's report means strong economy, more rate hikes. I don't know. As of just the other day, they were pricing in definitely no rate hikes through the end of the year. And then I was reading this morning a 33% chance of a rate decrease in like March of next year. But Who knows, man? Those guys are all over the place. One Fed speaker will say one thing, another Fed speaker will counter them and say the opposite thing. So hard to know what they're thinking. Is there an indicator with multiple moving averages so that you don't have to add them separately? Yes, there is, sir. A couple of them. So type in ribbon. This MA ribbon by Steve Burns would be the one that I would use. You can choose multiple different moving averages. Obviously, simple and exponential are the two popular ones. So you select the moving average you want, and then here you input the lengths. By default, it's set to 5, 10, 20, 30, and 50. You can adjust the colors of all of those moving averages, the stroke of the line, and so on. But set this to whatever you want it. Maybe you want 20, I don't know, 50, 100, 150, 200. I don't know what you might want, but say apply, and there you go. Let me turn this off. There's your 5 moving averages. There's also clouds. So if you type in Ripster, moving average cloud. This one's a pretty popular one with many traders, especially if you're just using 2 moving averages, like for example, the 8 and the 21 EMA. You can choose to visually see the moving averages. So you would want to click these boxes to turn them on. But this indicator is all about the cloud, right? So that's why these are not on by default. Let me show you what it is. When the cloud is positive, the short-term moving average is above the long-term. The cloud is one color. When the short-term moving averages are, or short-term moving averages below the longer term, the cloud is the opposing color. And again, just like I said, you can click these on. That's going to now you can see the moving averages themselves. Up to you whether you want that. Most people, when they're using the cloud, they're using it because it's just kind of highlighting the area as opposed to the hard lines of the moving averages themselves. So those are the 2 places I would direct you, Cracked, or the 2 indicators I would direct you to. Now, Mike, what are you thinking about the scanner? Have you did what I just kind of went over, did that help a little bit? Is there any other questions that you have? There is a lot of flexibility with the scanner. Let me actually take a little bit of time to talk about all of the different ways that you can use it. So the first thing here is all of the following. This is your main definition for everything that lives underneath it. So I can choose any of the following. I can choose none of the following. So you can define different sets of conditions different ways. And you can also define that those conditions occurred. Right on, Cracked. We'll see you back in 10 minutes. I'll probably be here unless just a bunch of questions come through and I keep having things to talk about. I'm probably going to be getting out of here in about half an hour, just so you are aware. But you can define that they happened, and you can define the very specific candle that they happened on, or you can say that they happened within X candles if you don't want to be so specific with when something happened. The next piece of this, though, let's say you absolutely want to say, we're just going to do something very simple. Actually, I'll just use GPT conditions. We'll say 8 EMA crossed up 21 EMA. So it's going to build this for me. Cool. So here's the 8 EMA crossed up on the 21 EMA. And let's say I wanted that to have happened right now. So I'm going to say happened. Now, what if I want to add another set of conditions where I define those conditions in a new way? Well, in order to do that, I'm going to go to add parameter and I'm going to choose condition group. And when I choose condition group, it opens a smaller subgroup within the larger framework of the whole. So maybe here I want to say none happened, right? And maybe I want to say, I don't know, RSI dropped below 30. So Say add a GPT condition. We'll say RSI less than 30. Cool. And then what if I also wanted to say that I don't know, the 50 is not less than the 200. I don't know. I'm just kind of picking random things. I'm not saying that this is something that you would absolutely want to look for. I'm just showing you how you can define things different ways. Okay, Mike, so when you start playing with it, you'll probably start with these pre-scripted things, but if you have specific stuff that you're looking for, I just want you to understand kind of like how these pieces work. So what we've defined that we're looking for here is that the 8 crossed up on the 21, and also RSI was not less than 30 and the 50 was not below the 200. You could define this. You could say within the past 10 candles. So RSI hasn't been below 30 in the past 10 candles. The 50 hasn't been below the 200 in the past 10 candles. If you really wanted to get sick with it, you could say on another symbol. You could define like SPY. Maybe you're looking for names that are meeting this criteria, and also you want to define something about a specific symbol. That's getting pretty into the weeds, but you can do it. Because all of the following definition is up here, it's saying that this condition has to be true and these conditions have to essentially not be true because we're defining them as none of the following. I could change this and make it any and say either of these is true. So the ADMA is crossed up on the 21 and RSI is less than 30, or the 50 is less than 200. Notice how this definition is changing what we're defining here. I could take this steps farther and add more condition groups. And where I add those condition groups is important, right? If I add a condition group inside of my already pre-built condition group here, then this definition up here is affecting the conditions that are contained within this third condition group we've just made. I can also come up here and add a condition group. I'm going to expand this. So now I've got 2 separate condition groups, and I could define them unique ways. This one has none of the following conditions. This one has any of the following conditions. And maybe here I want to say something like, I don't know, candlestick patterns. And maybe I want to use a different time frame. I'm just going to pick some random stuff. So now I'm saying that this is true. These 2 things are not true. And any of these are true. Again, remember, if I change this and say like any of the following, then either this is true, or this is true. So you can see how deep you could get with it. You could get very, very deep with it. You can use, again, up to 4 different time frames. You can use price conditions, indicator conditions, candlestick pattern conditions, chart pattern conditions, earnings, dates, values, dividends, splits, news, analyst estimates. You can even include your favorite watch list as a rule. There's a lot you can do. Don't get intimidated by it, but do understand how all of these pieces work within one another. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, Mike. If you have any questions, do feel free to ask them. I certainly wouldn't expect you to completely understand all of this, especially if you're new. I wouldn't expect you to completely understand all of that right off the bat. You may have to watch this a time or two to get it. But know that all of these visual scripts, there's like 800 of them. They're all here, pre-built for you for almost every major indicator and indicator condition that you might be after. There's very likely something built for you already. You like volume and shorts. So shorts is a tricky one to define. I mean, yeah, presumably you're saying you like to go, you like to trade the short side. Is that what you're saying? If you want to define things about volume, let's see what's here. Yeah, above average volume. So these are going to all use RVol, I would imagine. Oh, okay. So they use, this is actually something you should know, Mike. Let me show you something. So volume obviously is an indicator. I'm going to teach you some things. When you type in volume in your indicator list here in your scanner, you're going to see these two options. You're going to see volume, comma, MA, and you're going to see volume, comma, vol. These are two different definitions. And the volume MA refers to the MA that we have defined here. We can, of course, change this. I can make this a different length. I can make this either an SMA or an EMA. But volume MA is the average volume over the period of time that you have defined. So the 20 SMA, average volume. Volume, comma, vol, this guy, volume vol, refers to the volume on a single candle. So what have we defined here? We've said volume MA is less than volume vol. What that says is that the volume on the current candle is greater than the average volume over the past 20. Volume vol. There's another way to define this, though. There's relative volume. So when you type in RVol, that's relative volume. Relative volume is essentially just a value that defines the same thing as what we just defined in a different way. If you're not already familiar. Hopefully I'm not telling you stuff that you already know. If I am, I'm sorry, and you can just interject and say, yeah, I know. But relative volume is going to define the current volume relative to the average volume. So if relative volume, if the current relative volume value is 1, that means that the current volume is equal to the average. If relative volume is greater than 1, then the current volume is greater than the average. 1 is your kind of like 0 line. So if your relative volume value is, let's say, greater than a constant value of 2, then what this is looking for is 2x average volume. Again, remember current candle. Let's pick a list. Let's see if there's anything out there that has like really high volume today. I don't know. But RVol is a really, really simple and efficient way to define volume. I kind of like it the most. But volume can be defined multiple ways, like you just saw. Gosh, scanner pretty slow today. AMAT. Big gap down on AMAT. And you can see that volume quite above average. You have a bunch? What does that mean? You have a bunch what? Okay, so there was somebody who was asking about, I just got an answer. Trader Isaac, are you still here? Isaac, if you are here, sounds like we are doing a little testing of a new chart design on the top toolbar. Trends for you is going to be under a button titled Automated Analysis. This might be a new account thing. Obviously, my account is not new. Arvol, yeah. All right, so you know. Yeah, Arvol's great. Arvol's such a cool tool. It's so simple, but it's so effective. Like if you want to find top movers today, this is all you need. You just need Arvol, because generally speaking, where the volume is where the biggest moves are occurring. It's also kind of interesting though. Ooh, Gap did exactly that. Huge move. It's also though an interesting way of finding stocks that haven't moved yet, but are maybe being accumulated quietly. Oftentimes though, big volume equals large moves. Natural grocers, big breakout there, huh? This thing has been pretty boring over the past year. Not no mo. Isaac, are you here? So what's up, y'all? And anybody have any other questions? Anything anybody wants to look at or play around with or tool on or? I'm here as long as y'all need me to be. Curious about how to script anything, how to define things, where tools are on the platform. I want to see what the folks are talking about today. These are always interesting. Top positive mentions on Reddit. Walmart. That's interesting. You guys are a quiet bunch. If nobody has any other questions, I don't want to spend too much time sitting around quietly. But again, if you do, that's what I'm here for. I'm gonna pop into Discord real quick and see if anybody's got anything. Yeah, ATR2. That's a big one. Proto. Any good books for learning to make really good TrendSpider strategies? Wow, that's interesting. Good books? No, I don't know of any. Are you in our Discord, Proto? If you're in our Discord, Proto, I would recommend checking out the announcements section. If you're not yet in our Discord, I believe there's a link. Yeah, right here. Join our official Discord server. If you scroll up in the announcements, I try and I kind of have a little new personal initiative where I'm going to be posting new strats at least once a week. Maybe I'll post one a week. Maybe I'll post a few. Just kind of depends. I make them as I make them. So as far as learning to make good strategies, really, truly, the tools that are in the strategy tester are going to be your guide. They are certainly my guide. Okay, cool. So the first thing you can think of is reverse engineering that stuff. Kind of thinking through the conditions that are contained within those strategies, because you can load them all in and look at them. The next step, though, is really truly using the tools to allow to like shape where you're going. I'll show you one more thing. Let me see if I can rebuild it. Excuse me. So the other day, I was speaking with my friend Jermaine, the strat soldier. I don't know if any of you guys are strat traders, but the folks in the strat, it seems, or the folks that trade the strat seem to not utilize the strategy tester really at all, which is kind of interesting. And perhaps there are some folks that trade the strat that utilize it, but talking to him about it, it sounded like maybe he wasn't quite certain how to use it. So I decided I would try and build a strategy for him based off of strat conditions. So, and I don't trade the strat. I know essentially what it is. I know essentially what the patterns are. I don't know exactly how they view every pattern, but let's talk through kind of what I was thinking. So because I don't really know what I'm doing with the strat, I just selected something super simple. Like I know reversal patterns, the 2 down, 2 up. So they take out the lows and then they take out the highs. That's a 2 down, 2 up reversal. So I said, well, let's buy the 2 down, 2 up reversal, and then let's sell the 3 1 2 down reversal. So you have an outside candle, an inside candle that goes 2 down. 2 down meaning they take out the low of the inside candle. A 2 down, 2 up, your 2 down takes out the low of the previous candle. Your 2 up takes out the high of the 2 down candle. So it's just it's essentially like a Wyckoff spring, if you're familiar with that idea. So I said, well, I'll start there. I'll go long on a 2 down, 2 up reversal, and I'll get out on a 3 1 2 down reversal. Because again, I don't know what I'm doing. And let me go to, I believe, where was I on? Maybe the 15. Let me switch this. I think I was on the 15. I can't recall. But essentially, the strategy performed poorly. So here's the strategy. Overlay it on top of the asset. The blue line is my strategy. And the colorful line is my asset. Anytime this line is green, I'm in a trade that actually goes in my favor. Anytime it's red, I'm in a trade and it goes against me. So I'm in a lot of trade. I mean, I'm in a trade almost all the time here, which is kind of interesting. But it doesn't perform very well. We're not beating buy and hold. Look, 22% return on the strategy versus a 28% return on the asset over the same period of time. I've got a bunch of no-go highlighting here. This is just letting me know, hey, this strategy, it kind of sucks. It's not worth employing. It's not safe to employ. You have to fix it. And so then I go into my price behavior explorer here. And just like I did before, I have 96% of winners turned on. And the first thing that I note is where my winners, where I kind of tend to not be in any more positions. 96% of my winning trades close out after about 220 candles or so. So then the first thought that I have is like, okay, well, why don't I get out of this trade if 220 candles passed? So I use the candles passed, number of candles passed. and we make it 220, and then I rerun the test. Now, every time I change something about a strategy, I rerun the test because I want to see how it affects, how each individual change affects each strategy. So things got a little bit better, but not much. Still performing pretty poorly. So the next thing I do is I want to see like where my winners tend to draw down, where my winners tend to extend. What's the best case scenario for my winners? What's the worst case scenario for my winners? 7,000 candles, 3M, 9% gain on the NQ. I mean, we could talk about, if you want to, we could talk about your strategy. We could see about making it a little bit better. When I look at this chart, though, I see that in the best case scenario, my winners gain 9.5%, 10%. And they tend to draw down as much as about 3% before reversing and becoming winners. So this makes me think maybe I should cut out everything below 3% loss. And I should maybe take profit closer to 10. Just to see if that'll change things. Right? So we'll put a stop loss of 3. Take profit of 10. And then rerun the test. Still, things just aren't all that great. They're a little bit better. Not really all that great. And so I pop in here now and I see that really after like 100 candles, I don't know, things just kind of start to die out a little bit. I get a little boost back here at around 200 candles. So I turn on my number of winning positions and then I see this, like 7 of my positions only make it out here. Whereas 22 make it here. 32 make it here to like 5%. How many positions did I take? Well, only 73. So if I know that only 7 of my 73 positions actually make it this far, probably tells me I need to like, I need to stop shooting for the moon here, and I need to consider the fact that almost half of my positions are able to make it to almost a 5 or 6% gain. So then I adjust that, change my take profit to like 6 to see if that'll help. That doesn't really help. It's tricky. It's very tricky. And then we just start playing around, you know, trying different time frames. Sometimes these tools really, really direct you really well, and sometimes it's just very hard. So I'm just seeing if different time frames, if the different time frames would help me out. Let's see one thing here. Yeah, so now we tried it on the hourly and things get a little bit better here. We're now beating the asset on the hourly. We've removed all of the no-go highlighting, which is pretty cool. Oops. I'm trying to think, how did I do this? So as we're making these changes, things about our strategy are changing too. You know, now 84 candles is kind of the max. We might want to tighten up a stop loss a little bit. Looks like 2% is now kind of the max that our winners draw down before becoming winners. So maybe I want to cut everything below 2%. And maybe I want to tighten up the time that I'm in this for. Let's bring this to 80. And let's take that stop loss down to 2. And so now we're starting to see some progress here. Because again, remember, I don't know really anything about how this strategy should work. So that's why I'm kind of using the tools to help guide me. I've got no-go highlighting, so things are safer. We're beating buy and hold by about 160%. That's pretty cool. Hard to do on Apple too. Now, something that I notice is this max drawdown, negative 23.8%. That's on the strategy. And that for me is a little much. Though we don't highlight that, for me personally, that just feels like a pretty steep little drawdown. So maybe I want to try and mitigate that some. And the way that I think to mitigate it is to adjust the stop loss and tighten it up. So again, we're just kind of experimenting here, but we put a 1% stop loss instead of a 2% stop loss to see if we can mitigate that max drawdown a little, just to bring it into a little bit safer of a territory. And then we get this, which is pretty sweet. 517% return versus 190 on the asset. So now we're beating the asset by like, what is that? 3x? Your equity curve is looking a lot more up and to the right. That's nice. We've removed no-go highlighting. Our max drawdown is now negative 16.2%. That's half of what the max drawdown on the asset is. So this is starting to feel like a pretty cool little strategy now that we've kind of utilized Price Behavior Explorer to tell us kind of like how our winners tend to work, how many of our winners actually make it there. And you could maybe tighten this up even more. You know, you could see that about, what is this, 65 candles, things start to die off. You know, we're kind of trading nicely in that 5% return for most of our positions, but then after about 65 candles, your returns really fall off. So perhaps maybe even adjusting this more and making it 65 candles, meaning we're, regardless of where we're at in this trade, at 65 candles, we stop out. So did this change anything? The return is about the same. Only one additional position. Still pretty safe though. Max DD is the same. Yeah, very little changed about that. We could try adjusting it just a little bit more, bringing it in a little bit. It probably won't change too much. It might add maybe 1 or 2 positions. All right, so we added 4 positions, and we increased our returns now. Now, one could argue that this is perhaps too curve fit, but I would push back against that. You know, we're not using a ton of different things. We're really still just sticking to that basic script of those 2 reversal patterns, the bullish reversal pattern and the bearish reversal pattern as our entry and exit. And then we're just saying, well, we want to get out after this period of time. We're keeping a very tight stop loss, and we're taking a profit when it hits. And now that's a nice equity curve. I mean, there's not really too steep drawdowns. There's not any drawdowns that are too steep. It certainly is beating buy and hold by quite a bit, and especially over a decent period of time. Now, the only other thing that you might want to do with this is you might want to play around with the 7,000 candle window. Now, you're used to testing back 7,000 candles, but that's testing back from today, right? So this is the hourly time frame. We're looking at 4 years worth of data. We're looking at 2019 to now, essentially. But you can actually choose a date range. So you can define, like, I want a 4-year window from 2022 or 2002 to 2006 and say apply, and see how this strategy works in a totally different window of time. Does it work or does it not work? Well, clearly it does not work in 2002 to 2006. It works terribly relative to the asset. You can see it super clearly. This is our strategy versus the return on the asset. Tough time to beat Apple then. Even though the strategy is technically still clean, there's no no-go highlighting. It just performs poorly relative to the asset. So maybe you want to check, I don't know, 2006 to 2010. See how it does during that window. You could then take all these values and bring them in to a CSV file. So here we go. Now we're trading with the asset. What looks kind of good about this is the fact that the equity curve doesn't draw down nearly the same as the asset does. So when things are scary, the strategy is performing relatively well. Ultimately, you land at the same spot and your win rate isn't very high during that period. But this is just another way to be thinking through how you test your strategies. You know, obviously you want durability. 4 years is a pretty good amount of time to know if a strategy works or not, but being able to take that 4-year period and jump around different decades is pretty cool. And just, again, let you understand how durable that strategy is over the real long term, since there is that limitation of 7,000 candles. So hopefully that helps a little bit, Proto. If you're ever curious about anything, man, hit me up on Twitter, send me what you've got. Like, I could share this. I'm just going to go back to the 7,000 candles. One really cool thing about these different tools on TrendSpider is you could save them. So we'll call this, I don't know, the strat, reversal strat. Say save. And then I could share this with you guys. And you can load it into your accounts and tool around with it. Oh, darn. Doesn't want to let me send it. Let me try something. Let this thing do its thing. There we go. So I could take this, I could share it with you guys, and y'all can load it into your accounts. There you go. So Proto, if you want to play around with that strategy you've got, send it over to me. Just send it to my Twitter. DM it to me. Or you can add it here if you want. There's my Twitter account. Can the scanner be in some way connected with the news of some point? Mike. So in the scanner, the way that you can utilize news in the scanner, include an article with all of the keywords, include an article with any of the keywords, include at least one article. So like, I don't know. You do things like this, but it says searching through the news might be tricky. Read our manual here. I would recommend this. Spend a little time reading through this and what it suggests about how to be scanning for news. So guys, we are at the time that I kind of plan to go until. Got a little bit more, well, quite a bit more work to do today. I'm curious to know, anybody have any specific additional questions that you need answered? All right, yeah, add it to your AI art account, dude. You making NFTs? If anybody has any other specific questions, do feel free to ask them now. As they say, speak now or forever hold your peace, because I am going to be getting out of here shortly. If no questions, no big deal. It has been a pleasure hanging out with you guys today, talking shop. I really enjoy being live, answering questions in real time. If you are not yet a TrendSpider trader, what are you waiting for, friends? What are you waiting for? We have a Black Friday deal going on right now. During this Black Friday deal, you can save a massive amount of money. Up to 82% off. And I know that we've been offering this month, but if you've been really paying attention, you've been seeing things like this. Throughout the month, we have been adding additional little bonus offers as well. And right now, there's a pretty sweet little additional deal that you get for signing up. What do you have to do to avoid curve fitting? Martin, that is an eternal question. I don't know that there is a way not to curve fit a little bit. I think it's kind of impossible not to curve fit a little bit. I think it's the amount with which you curve fit is what's important. And gosh, that's even discretionary, isn't it? What I think is maybe more important is taking your strategy and trying it out on perhaps maybe some different names and on some different time frames and across different periods of time, like I just showed you guys. I think that's a better kind of way of going about it, as opposed to like trying to just completely avoid curve fitting. You can also forward test. You know, you don't have to, just because you create a strategy that works well historically, doesn't mean you have to just completely implement it initially. You could forward test it and run it. Like one thing that I look for is, you know, how many times has it taken losing, or how many times recently has it been in a winning trade? How many times recently has it been in a losing trade? I see periods like this on the chart where it's just like losing trade, losing trade, losing trade, losing trade, losing trade, losing trade. You know, this can help me understand, like, do I need to add some criteria here? Like maybe I needed to use, I don't even know if this is going to work, but what if I did something like price, close, greater than, indicator, and use a smaller simple moving average to avoid getting in to scenarios like this. I don't consider this curve fitting so much. This is just trying to clean up issues. This may impact my returns. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to affect things. But you want to watch your tabular data closely. You want to make sure that you're always in the green here. No no-go highlighting. All right, so did that help at all? I mean, it removed some of these lousy trades, not all of them. And it took down my performance too. So I don't know if there's a different moving average we should be using here, or I don't know. Or maybe we shouldn't even worry about it. We can play around though. Yeah, it's still having that trouble. Maybe make this to 10. This might really mess up my strategy though. Yeah, it did. Yeah, unfortunately, Martin, I just don't know if I'm expert enough to tell you what you have to do to avoid curve fitting, because I think when you're building strategies, you're naturally going to curve fit at least some. You have to. And it's just a matter of like what is the right amount, how to avoid too much curve fitting. So guys, any other questions? Are we feeling pretty good? It's Friday. Next week is Thanksgiving. That's so crazy. This year has absolutely flown by. I just kind of can't believe that we're already here at the end of November, almost. If no more questions, I'm going to jump. Again, if you're not yet on TrendSpider. Mike, I agree with that completely, man. And that's really what it boils down to. You need to know when things work and when things don't work. Building strategies is the same idea. You know, you build a strategy for certain market conditions. When those market conditions change, you try new strategies. Most of the folks that I know that employ strategies and trading bots are swapping things in and out as time goes on. Sometimes things just work in certain conditions and they don't work in others. Anywho, I am coming to the end here. Again, if you are not yet a TrendSpider trader, what are you waiting for? This is the best deal you're going to get on TrendSpider. This is the best deal we've ever offered, really. I mean, it is a killer offer. And right now you're getting, what are you getting? You're getting a year of futures data included. You're getting a free training session included. And you're getting 3 months of signal stack order routing included as well. So you're not just getting that great deal, but you're also getting all that additional data, which is pretty awesome. The training session is pretty sweet too. You know, I'm not always allowed to answer your questions, so you can request a training session for those questions. Last thing here before I jump, I always like to give a shout out to my old friends in customer support. These guys are one of the best indicators available on TrendSpider that we don't really talk a ton about. These guys are available for you all day. Well, not all day, but most of the day and every day. There's somebody here in chat live answering questions for you. So keep this in mind. Martin, strategies. Are you in our Discord? Because I've shared 2 today already. Martin, if you're in our Discord. Yep, I've shared 2 today that are pre-built. You don't have to be a TrendSpider trader to be in our Discord. I don't think. Up here, click on the little question mark button and go to join our official Discord server. Send this to you. Here in the Discord, let me show you. Go to announcements. And here are a few I posted last week. Here's one I posted just the other day, Tesla strategy. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll see them. We post them from time to time on our TrendSpider account on Twitter. And like I said, if you scroll up, I shared a few things. So with that, lads, I'm going to get on out of here. It has been a pleasure hanging out with you guys today. I wish you all a very, very happy Friday. And again, if you are not yet a TrendSpider trader, what are you waiting for? Now is the time. You've got only a few more days left to take advantage of this deal. And again, these additional bonus offers, not around much longer either. 2 more days for these guys. So as I said, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you all. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you all have a lovely weekend. I hope you get to do something fun, touch some grass, maybe do a little strategy testing in your new TrendSpider account if you sign up. Holler at me if you need me. You know where to find me, at Krutzky Trades on Twitter. I will be back again next week doing some more of these live streams. I'm not certain what days I'm going to do them, but I will be doing them again. So if there's anything that this weekend you go, oh man, I need to ask him about that, just subscribe to our channel. You can do that here on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, then you'll get news on when I'm going live again. And we'll see you on the other side. Yeah? Sound like a plan? Sounds like a plan to me. I hope you guys all have a great weekend. And holler if you need me. All right, y'all. Take care.